You are not.
We are just putting new pea stone on top of there. Because
So
it's all worn out, and
You are not putting a concrete landing pad in,
No.
is that correct?
we are not.
So
I'm
the plans
confused.
that were submitted on Viewpoint for your building permit show a new concrete landing pad.
Oh, well, or maybe I misunderstood. My understanding of the building code is that there needs to be a cement landing pad under the stairway. That does not exist right now. And my understanding, I'm guessing, is it's going to be 4 feet by maybe 2.5 feet.
That's.
And that would be within the buffer zone as well?
That's right next to the house.
Okay.
We have a picture if that, on our phone, if that would help.
How can a deck be so close to the no-touch zone?
The house was built prior to bylaws,
Yeah, it's
so it's.
1971.
Yeah, that's
That
why,
explains it.
yeah.
Okay,
And he's
And
right.
then
Now
the
I
pilings,
understand.
the footings
Now
are
I
needing to be
understand.
upgraded per building code.
dear God.
No footings today. We're adding them to
It's not
come
your
up.
fault, nobody's fault.
It hasn't settled.
I get it. Okay.
Comment? So historically, we've run into these kinds of things all the time, because again, these are very old structures that were before the laws. If you actually look at the photos, it's all completely, it's yard, it's
Right.
disturbed area. I mean, basically, as long as best practices are, and the best practices are laid out in Rika's notes, as long as the best practices are done, typically we would allow an MBZA. We wouldn't have to go to an NOI, only because it's not creating work in existing that is new in a 25-foot, right? So, I mean, I personally think it would be a real onus to the landowner to do an NOI on something like this. And I also do know that it is actually code to put concrete steps, because I have a friend who ran into that when they thought they were just gonna take whatever the steps are, the piece out and put it back in. And it's like, nope, you can't do that. So that is true. So basically, the applicant is sort of restricted by current building codes, right? Has to follow them. Isn't a question. It's not something they're making a choice to do. They have to do it. And it's inside a completely disturbed lawn, right? My only question, I guess, is for the commissioners. The second photograph seems like the land slopes away from the structure down. Maybe that's just the way the photo was taken. Is that the case?
Yeah, it slopes towards the pond.
Okay, all right. So then basically you would want to be or the applicant would want to be very careful about the construction debris not getting washing
Right.
into, we haven't had any rain, but if we do, right? So,
There's going to be very little disturbed areas.
okay. So, end of comments.
No, it's well said. I get it.
Michael, any questions or comments?
No questions or comments?
Jeff, any questions or comments?
No questions here.
Rika, can you summarize what you would be suggesting as conditions for the MBZA?
Sure. So biodegradable wattles, recommended condition, biodegradable wattles shall be placed along the boundary of the limit of work for the duration of the project. The wattles shall be staked in place and shall overlap at their ends to provide a continuous perimeter. Wattles shall not be removed until the conservation agent has conducted a site inspection. And then potential conditions for the commissioners. All concrete mixing shall occur on level ground with secondary containment, and/or all pea gravel stockpiling is preferred outside of the 100-foot buffer zone on level upland to the best extent practicable. All pea gravel stockpiling must occur outside of the 50-foot buffer zone on level upland.
Could you say that again slowly?
Sure, I can explain it in plain language as well if that helps. So concrete mixing shall occur on
That I got.
okay. All pea gravel stockpiling, so not when it's laid out, when it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Is preferred outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
That puts it in the street.
I think that goes in your driveway, actually. You can stockpile it in your driveway.
What-
But,
My point is 100 feet takes us into the street.
okay, so all pea gravel stockpiling must occur outside of the 50-foot buffer zone on level upland. So I gave you an alternative there. So you can put it in between your garage and your house before it's spread,
Oh,
thin spread
okay.
out.
Yeah,
you
it'll
know,
be in the
things of that
driveway.
nature. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Does that work? Perfect.
Okay. So can I take a motion to approve the MBZA subject to those conditions?
Motion subject to conditions.
Second.
Okay. Jeff, how do you vote?
Approve.
Michael?
Approved?
Bill?
Approved.
Jeff?
Approved.
And Pat, I approve as well. So
Great.
You're all set. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you, Ernie.
That'll get submitted to the building department tomorrow?
I can sign off on it, yeah. Yeah, of course, no problem.
Next up, we have an MBZA for 31 Charles River Drive. This was continued from our previous meeting. Is the applicant on with us tonight?
I do not believe he is able to attend today.
Brika, I understand you spoke with the applicant. Can you bring us
I
up to
did.
speed?
Yeah, so I was actually able to speak with the applicant today. He was out of town due to a family emergency, but he is working with a landscaper who specializes in native landscaping. The landscaper is looking to come out, landscape architect, my bad, next week and develop a plan with him. The applicant is not looking to plant until next spring. He's asked, actually what I suggested in my agent report is that the commission approves the MBZA and submits that plant list to me, and I work with him to restore the area to the best extent practicable.
I'd be comfortable with that approach. Any questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Yep.
Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Was this brought up at the previous meeting,
It was.
last meeting?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think the applicant wasn't able to attend at that time, and we continued it really just for our discussion of what are the plantings going to be in.
Was there any dialogue?
At the last meeting, no.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That gives me, I do not have to abstain.
Jeff, any questions for you?
No questions.
Great. Take a motion to approve the
Motion to
MBZA.
approve.
Second.
Jeff?
Approve.
Mike?
Approved.
Bill?
Approved.
And Jeff?
Approved.
And Pat, I approve as well. So the MBZA is approved for 31 Charles River Drive. Next up, we have an MBZA for lot 18 and 19 on Chestnut Street. Thanks, Amanda.
Good evening. Amanda Cavalieri with Garrier and Hellman, here on behalf of KTKM Realty Trust. We're here for an after-the-fact MBZA application for temporary disturbance. We were conducting test pits out on site and to observe groundwater and soil types for the potential for a future development as far as 2 single-family houses or 2 houses on those lots. So what we had done was we had located test pits in the field off of 1997 wetlands. And again, it was more so to preliminary testing. We were out there with the Board of Health agent. We had submitted the application through them. And we were notified the day after, or I think it was a couple days after, on the 5th, that we were in violation, that we were too close to the wetlands, and that we needed to get the issue resolved. So we're here today to, one, ask for forgiveness, as well as, we understand that we do have to go back and file a notice of intent should the applicant decide to develop the house lots later on. For the MBZA, we were talking with the applicant. I know we've tried to work with Brika as far as restoration alternatives. We understand that the applicant has gone back out there. They've raked over some of the dirt and the area that was disturbed. We tried to be outside of the buffer, but again, the wetlands were 1997, and to do preliminary, or to do the testing for a septic system as opposed to possibly getting a sewer extension, so for future development, we did just the two test pits on each lot. So there was some disturbance there from the equipment that went in there. What we'd like to propose to the commission is, and Brika, if you're amenable to it, is that we would like to, keep an eye on the area based on the drought and lack of water, and we're afraid that any type of restoration or plantings at this point, in the year may not take.
Yeah.
But we would like to work and keep this on the radar until, the spring. And touch base with Brika again while we monitor it. No further work is planned out there, whatsoever at this time. And in the event that the applicant decides to, put a house on there, we understand that we are gonna have to do a notice of intent, and at that time, we would address further mitigation and restoration areas, as needed. We'd work with Brika on that.
Thank you for that. I think, for the forgiveness, we need to yell at you a little bit first.
That's fine, absolutely, I understand.
Right, I understand that the test pit activity is exempt, but, certainly this is something that, at the very least, the conservation agent needs to be notified for, and better than the rest of us that a
I do.
1997 wetland delineation is no longer
Valid.
reliable. Brika, any thoughts on kind of what the next steps are here?
Yeah, I offered the after the fact MBZA in lieu of an enforcement order. I thought that was a good middle of the road agreement. I'm okay considering the drought, planting next spring, or at the very least touching back in 30 days, September, October,
Sure.
to see where we're at.
Yeah.
I did ask that the applicant or G&H, whomever, go out, as the area was actually very rutted. There was disturbed soil that was piled in places. It was not cleaned up very well. So I did ask that they go out, and it sounds like they went out and raked it. So those are my thoughts.
I think I'd be amenable to that, and maybe subject to revisiting depending on the drought conditions.
Sure.
And I doubt it's going to be feasible or worthwhile to do it this fall, but you never know. Any thoughts, questions?
I agree.
No.
Jeff, any questions or comments?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. So I think if that works for you, then.
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
And yes, we are kicking ourselves at this point, especially myself. So my approach with the projects, and we're always very straightforward, and we will keep in touch with Brika. We'll talk with her on a regular basis and work with the commission and Brika to get it resolved and cleaned up.
Yep, no, I appreciate that, and
I have one additional comment. So when this came to me, I did go wander over to the health department, and they were not aware that when there are wetland resources, even if it's for septic, that it needed to come across my plate on Viewpoint. So I've been added now to all septic installs,
good.
just like any other building permit.
Okay.
So
Good.
it is a fumble, but
there has been some miscommunication recently, and you're not the only one.
Yeah.
So we appreciate it, and I think going forward, this plan sounds fun. This isn't a public hearing, but notwithstanding, do you have any comments or anything?
I certainly do, yes.
Would you mind stepping up and just giving your name and address?
My name's Rick Saccone. I live at 185 Chestnut.
Hey, Rick.
I was I was present at this time. I spoke to the G&H people about going into those wetlands. They said they had the right permission to do so. Never saw a health agent there for either time. I know the lot behind me is probably might be 50 feet out of the buffer, might be. I know the buffer, actually, the 100-foot buffer from the 97 wetlands, which I have the plans for. Well, I can't say I'm positive it's grown, but I know that from the 87 first map that I have to the 97 map, that the agent that came out at that time had said how those wetlands had grown, based on the fact that Chestnut Ridge, if you're familiar with the area, Chestnut Ridge is now, at that time was not, well, it was the blueberry fields, what we picked when we were kids. Okay, that's how long I've been on that property, 75 years. Now that Chestnut Ridge is completely built out, and that water, much of it sheds down Chestnut Street into that storm drain and into that lowlands 10 feet below grade, and has filled it time and time again. To have folks going out there now doing test pits in the middle of a drought is troubling to me. This whole proposal in 97 came forward, and it was going to have sewer. It failed because the Franklin Sewer Extension Bylaw, Mr. Bobrowski's plan, which was put in place at that time, stopped that. This was the test case for the fact that in Franklin, sewer is a privilege, it's not a right. It remains to this day to be one of the very few bylaws and that we as a town have to hang our hats on against overdevelopment, which in my humble opinion is something that is prevalent everywhere we look. The apartments, what we've, at the planning board last, I said we're putting 5 pounds of S in a 10-pound bag. Excuse me, we're putting 10 pounds of S in a 5-pound bag in this community. But back to the original point. When I spoke to the G&H people, I asked them, and this is at the wetlands behind my home, what they found and why they were in there, even though they said they had permission, was we found skunk cabbage. Now, and this is on the drier of the 2 lots. I know that ground better than anyone. Last time in 97, when we were against this, I had 8 of my neighbors, 7 of them still live there, 6 of them on Longobardi Drive, Frank, who lives on Chestnut Street, who reported how they had, and I heard no mention of the tree the fellas cut down to get in there. Isn't that somewhat of a, well, they had to cut a tree down to get in there, in the wetlands, and I don't think that's proper, but they did with their little excavator. Frank, the fellow who lives right next to us, said as they dug, the water filled in. And this is during the drought, and this is where they expect to put a septic system in a wetlands. We're gonna start putting septic systems in wetlands now?
Well, and Rick, if you don't mind.
Please.
So I appreciate you coming and I hear what you're saying. I think there are a couple separate things going on. One is that what they did right now, I think the process was not followed properly. However, had they come to us in advance, the test pit drilling that they did is an exempt activity. So it's not really something that we would have had the ability to say no to. I think it's, something that they would have been able to do. I think there's a separate question over can they develop those lots, and that's something that, we're just not, it's not before us right now, and I think there's a lot of other factors that will go into that question.
Well, with all due respect to both this board, and I know you're in a tough spot because I'm not the easiest guy to get along with, but I try to reach out to the applicant basically to say to him, as an old man wanting to talk to a young man, I think you got to save his money. I think for anybody to go in there and think that they can do this and that the 7 people in the back and the 2 in the front are going to sit idly by and not be in here, speaking to saying, if you allow this sort of thing, you will never stop a home. We will have pork chop lots. We will have the same, I have lots of stuff that I can't bring forward today from the days when we had Mr. Robinson from the Boston Globe come here and talk about how overdeveloped Franklin was, how the developers and the politicians had gotten way too close together. I don't know if any of you gents lived here then, but we all lived, some of us older folks lived through all that. I just think that if I could say to the young Mr. Rafferty, I think you should save his money because this is not developable land. But it is his money, so he can do with it what he would. Thank you.
Rick.
Thank you.
So if there are any further questions or comments? Otherwise, I think I'll hear a motion to approve the after-the-fact MBZA.
Motion to approve
Oh.
with conditions as listed by the agent.
Okay. I have been ruminating on conditions, if you don't mind.
Oh,
if I
sure,
interject real
please.
quick. So I have 3 so far, which could be turned into 1. The applicant must submit a status update for restoration prior to October 1st, 2021. The disturbed area must be restored prior to June 21st, 2023, so that's the end of spring season. And then the applicant shall submit a restoration plan, and then I was going to kick it back to you on when you would like that plan submitted.
Amanda, when would it be reasonable to have a restoration plan back to us?
So a restoration plan, we would work on, I'd say we could probably give it with the status update, on October 1st. And if anything changes, we'll let Rika know.
Okay.
But we can give a proposed restoration plan for what we would like to do in the spring.
Okay.
And we would like to ask for, if we talk to our client between now and October 1st, and they choose to pursue doing an NOI, that we would have to file the NOI, but before June 2023 maybe. And that would incorporate the restoration plan, just so it's not duplicating efforts, if you know what I'm saying. I don't know how you would word that in there, but if our applicant decides that they want to move forward with developing those properties, should they choose to, we would have to do a notice of intent. And we would like to roll that into the notice of intent and get everything permitted, and that would have to be in, and the plantings would, or the restoration would have to take place during that time. I don't know if that.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I think the right way to do it would be to have it as Brika stated it, that the restoration's required by the end of the spring season, and if your client comes forward with an NOI, we can include as a condition of the NOI that it supersedes the requirement for restoration.
Okay, and we'll, when we give a status update on October 1st, we'll work to have a restoration, some sort of restoration plan in mind that we can incorporate into that status.
Okay,
Okay?
I think that sounds good.
I have
Michael?
a question?
Yep.
Yes. So, right now, we have a 97 wetland delineation, which is unreliable. Is there a need for a reliable one?
Yes.
In order to do the restoration or in order to submit
Right,
an NOI?
yeah, in order to do the restoration?
It's a good question. Brika?
I would say yes, considering when I went out there and I delineated, I found that the boundaries where they have grown, where the test pits were in buffer. But to accurately depict exactly where they need to plant certain species, where the 0 to 25 is, 25 to 50, right? Certain plants go in certain areas.
Okay.
I think it would be important to redelineate that anyways.
And I imagine, Amanda, that your client would be doing a delineation regardless, so does that,
If they were moving forward to develop the property, yes. What I might propose is if we could get a survey of the disturbed areas, and depending on where they fell, if we could extend where the old 97, where the buffer would be for the 97 ones. Because if they do choose not to develop that property, the wetland delineation and the additional funds to survey that whole area would be quite extensive. And maybe survey the areas that are disturbed and maybe expand that a little bit more and do, the 100% of the area that we've already disturbed, and then expand that to a little bit further outside of that area. More so wondering if the commission and Rika would be willing to work with us as far as the areas go. We understand any type of construction activities or development of that property will need an NOI, will need new flagging. If they're not choosing to do any further work on that property, it seems like a lot of additional survey work and wetland delineations to restore areas that were disturbed, which we would be happy to do, and then expand a little bit, based on at Rika's discretion as far as how far out beyond the areas that were disturbed and improve the area.
I can't delineate for them.
Right.
That's a
Not the wetland delineation, but extending the area of restoration.
But how do you do that
So-
without a delineation?
Right, and the area to restore is the entire area that's disturbed within the buffer.
Yes.
So to determine where that buffer is, you need an updated delineation.
Right, correct.
I think Michael's right. I think we do need an updated.
I agree.
I think we need an updated delineation
you
in
have
order
to.
just to assess.
I mean,
Good guess.
they're going to include a plan with the plan, an actual drawn plan with the plan. The drawn plan has to have the correct delineation on it. That's
Right.
how they're gonna get that. So,
I agree.
Agreed.
Anything further? Jeff, any further questions or comments?
No, but what Michael was saying, that we really need to get that area delimited.
I'm sorry, Jeff, can you say that again? I couldn't hear.
I agree with Michael and Jeff, that we need to get this area surveyed.
Great. So can I have a motion to approve the MBCA subject to the conditions as discussed?
Motion.
We just wanted to ask, when we need to have the wetlands redelineated, that the restoration plan would be beyond October 1st. We can give a status. But just scheduling wise, between survey and wetland scientists, 4 weeks is gonna be tight.
Yep, I don't have any
Agreed.
issue with that.
yeah, agreed.
But we can definitely give a status update by the October 1st.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine.
Right, so we're going with a motion
To approve
We
the
have a-
conditions.
with conditions as recommended.
Pat, we have a question.
Just a question on the tree that was cut down.
Yeah,
So I think that would be part of the restoration plan.
correct, if it falls within the buffer zone.
Yep.
Yep,
Thank you.
Yep.
yep. So you got the motion?
Motion,
Second?
second. Jeff?
Approve.
Michael? Approve. Bill?
Approve.
Jeff?
Approved?
And Pat Gallagher, I vote to approve as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a permit modification to extend the order of conditions for Margaret's Cove Mine Brook Estates. Rika, can you fill us in on this, please?
Sure. Actually, I do see the applicant
Oh, is the
is
applicant?
in June, yes.
Yes.
Hi, could you give your name for the record, please?
I can. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering, here representing Whitman Homes for the Minebrook Estate subdivision.
Hi, Eric, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you tonight?
Good, thanks.
Excellent. So this is the Minebrook Estate subdivision. It's at the end of Margaret's Cove. I want to say it's 7 lots that was approved roughly 3 years ago. And if you'd like, I can share my screen and bring up a plan just to show you the area. But basically, short version of a longer story is the project is just about done. We walked the site with your agent about probably 4 to 5 weeks ago at this point. The roadway is in, the infrastructure is in, the stormwater basin that's within the buffer zone is in. So we are preparing to file a request for certificate of compliance. We're, like everybody, we're a little backed up right now, so it's taking a little bit longer than we'd like. And we realize that as we're doing this, we're coming up on expiring the order that we currently have. And as you know, once an order expires, we can't really technically close it out without getting it reinstated.
Right.
So this is sort of a precautionary administrative matter that we're requesting an extension just for the period of 1 year to allow us to close out a current active order.
Great, thanks, Eric. Fine by me, any questions, concerns? Can I take a motion to approve the extension of 1 year?
Motion, 1 year.
Michael?
I don't know, I was wondering if the agent had any comments? I saw
Sure.
some in the.
There's just one comment that I had, Eric, which I'm not sure if it needs to be addressed now or within a year, but the stockpile that's on site, I actually was called by DPW, a week after we went out there. They have some concerns with it. It's a little overlapping jurisdiction here for the commissioners, but considering that the stockpile is eroding away, it's still going on to that abutting property that we saw, Eric, when we went out there. And there's town land right behind there, there's a well, things of that nature. I was just wondering what the final plans are for that stockpile. If the project is finished, are we able to get it removed? Are you able to vegetate it? Are you able to smooth it out and vegetate it, things of that nature? Just because I think if
Sure.
it sits longer, it's going to cause more problems.
I agree with you. And I apologize, I wasn't aware that you would receive that call.
That's all right.
What I will say is that that stockpile sits on the last buildable lot in the subdivision, and that lot is currently outside of conservation jurisdiction. So when we build on that, it'll be outside of this purview. However, the stockpile itself, my understanding is that the current owner is currently permitting a project on the other side of town that he's just about wrapped up with, and the idea is that the stockpile will be transported to that location, and then we will build on that last buildable lot. Now, that said, we can't let it sit there on a road. So we will absolutely address that concern. I will get with the client, with my client tomorrow, and if we need to seed it, we'll seed it. If we need another site walk, we can do that. We will come to an agreement and get this taken care of right away.
That's all. That's
So-
fine.
Sure. Sorry for, thank you for flagging that. I overlooked that. Okay. Great. So on that, take a motion to grant the extension.
Motion of extension with modification by agent.
Great.
Second?
Approved.
Approved?
Bill?
Approved.
Jeff?
Approved.
And Pat Gallagher, I approve as well. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Great, thank you all very much, and Brika, I'll be sure to follow up with you once I have a plan of action for that stockpile.
Sure, not a problem. Thanks, Eric.
All right, thanks, guys, appreciate it.
Bye.
Next up, we have approval of minutes for August 18th. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes?
I was not present for the meeting, but I did read them. As such, I'm told I can vote on them, so I would,
Okay.
I make a motion to
Great.
approve.
Before, did you have any questions?
No.
Michael?
Well, he answered my question. I watched the video. I wasn't here also, so.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
yep, so
approve.
you're-
Okay.
You can do either.
Yes, you're able to vote.
So I'll give you a motion to accept the minutes as stated.
Second?
Thanks.
Approved.
Approved?
Approved.
Jeff?
Approved.
And Pat, I approve as well.
Great.
Minutes for August 18th are approved. Next up, we have a couple of discussion items. The first is an update on 2 administrative approvals, one for 305 Union Street. This is something that is unrelated to the prior matter that was before us for 305 Union, and the second is for Fairmont Fruit Farm. Rika, can you
Yeah.
summarize where we're
Yep.
at for these two?
So for 305 Union Street, I received a minor buffer zone activity. It was something planned and suggested and necessary. But in the buffer zone, there is an asbestos pipe that was friable between 2 buildings. So I received the MBZA. I administratively approved it. There's actually no ground disturbance. It's just when they're driving in there and they're knocking stuff down, right? So I approved that. I have not conducted a follow-up site visit. I did suggest it. I have not heard back. That's fine. I'm not going to push it. And then for Fairmont Fruit Farm, I conducted a site visit last Friday. The mulch is removed, pretty down. He got it actually really down really well. There's already green up is already starting to happen through the mulch, so that's fantastic. CJ did ask if he could wait to seed and plant the trees until September, October, given the drought. I said that was okay. I think that's a much better viable option. We still have 2 years of monitoring as well, so I let him know if something doesn't take, next year he may have to pay for more seed. So those are my administrative approvals for August.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions or comments on either of those?
None.
Good. Jeff, any questions or comments on those?
Questions, thank you.
Okay. Can I take a motion to ratify those two administrative approvals?
Motion to ratify agent approvals as
Second.
listed.
Jeff?
Approve?
Mike?
Approved.
Approved.
And Jeff? Jeff, can you say again? We couldn't hear you. Is the sound coming through? I can see you approving. We just don't have. Are you muted? Try once more.
He gave a thumbs up, which I will assume is a
You know,
We can
Yes.
hear you now.
approved.
And Pat, I approve as well. So the approvals are ratified. Thanks, Brecken.
Yeah.
And then last up in discussion items is our fall Del Cart event, which is scheduled for October 22nd. And we're going to be collaborating with the Agriculture Committee and some others as well.
Yeah.
So what?
Sure.
what's- yeah.
Sure. Community builds unity, or unity builds community. I don't know. Roger says that all the time. Apparently, I pay attention. So Roger Trahan from the Ag Committee has offered to donate pumpkins for kids to paint. So you have sort of a
That's
kids
good.
event. Yep.
That's it.
He did throw out a few farms that could donate produce, Fairmont being one of them. We cannot do that because that is a conflict of interest, but there are other farms that he said he'd be willing to reach out to get some donations from. I did reach out to the garden club on a whim. They seemed very interested in attending. I haven't heard back though. Once I do get their chair information, I can send that to you, Pat.
Okay.
And I also heard back from our DCR forester, and he would love to attend and do a woods walk, talk to people, and speak to all of you about Del Cart. He seems pretty interested in that. I know we had mentioned doing some sort of stewardship. It seemed like their cleaning, trash pickup isn't necessarily necessary. I still think it's important maybe to bring a trash bag. Maybe everybody could share a trash bag so we're not creating more waste. But I've also drafted a flyer. I meant to bring it, I did not, and I just called stewardship. So whatever you would like to do for your stewardship, I think is great. You could do minor trail clearing, brush off. I plan on bringing my auger and my field books, maybe talking about autumnal vernal pools, things of that nature. There's also my RDA that I'm writing for the restoration plan for Del Cart, which I hope to present next September 15th, and I'm hoping, it's not a plug, but that gets approved, and then we can talk about that with people. There's a few different things that I'm planning in there. I know there's the pollinator patch that's at Del Cart, so there's a lot of outreach opportunity that I think you could chase for stewardship in lieu of trash pickup. Thoughts? Yeah?
Sounds great.
Sounds good, yeah.
Cool.
Rick?
Excuse me, is that September 15th this year? Where you at?
October 22nd.
For your submission of the,
Oh, for the restoration plan?
Yeah.
Yes, September 15th.
this,
Yes.
thank you,
If I get it in.
thank you, yeah. Yeah. I just didn't know if it was a year away.
I am making my own deadline.
No, that all sounds great, and thank you for all the outreach. I think, when is the town's harvest, like, the harvest festival, is that
October 1st.
1st? I know in the past, we've talked about trying to get a table or something there. Do you know if that's a possibility, just so that we can kind of get the word out?
I know Tyler's working it with Brian, which is why I'm deferring.
make a mention to him about it and see
Oh.
if there's something up or.
Yeah, just to kind of spread awareness, and I think in general, it would be good for us to have a presence there, even apart from anything that we're doing at Del Cart.
Sure.
Is the table to advertise the events in October in context, or just generally conservation activities?
would say all of the
I would see it
above.
as kind of just generally, and as part of that, we could get the word out about the Delcart event. But I think, just what we've been talking about and trying to use our platform to spread a little bit more kind of education about wetland resources and conservation in general, I think it would be a good idea to have a presence there if we can.
Are you looking for somebody to person the table? Sorry, man the booth? Or are you just looking for literature?
I'd be happy to man the booth.
Okay. I'm unavailable that day.
So if anyone else wants to join on October 1st, we can figure that out when the time comes.
I don't know if I'm around. If I am, I will.
Okay, sounds good.
And then Touch a Truck is October 15th as well. So I will be there. You're more than welcome to join me if you would like.
Great.
I'll be talking about wetlands and stormwater and inlets and how where all the drains go.
Okay, great. Jeff, any questions or comments or additions?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Great. Well, if there's nothing further, then, Bill,
Motion to close.
motion to
Wait,
close?
I have one quick
One
question.
Yeah.
So the MACC meeting, typically you have to choose what sessions you're going to go
Yeah.
to, and you have to send that in by a certain time.
Yep.
Do you know when that is?
You're talking for the conference?
Yeah.
Okay, I received an email back from Lindsay, and that registration isn't open yet.
It's not open, okay.
It's not
Right.
open yet.
Okay.
I tried.
I know, because
and-
people like rush to get their
Yes.
sessions.
Yeah,
in,
so I haven't heard back, but
Okay.
Bill, Michael, you are both registered for the fundamental units that you signed up for.
Thank you.
Yep. Yep.
All set?
Yeah. Relive my motion to
You can read.
relive it.
Yeah.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Approve.
Close.
Approved.
Jeff? Vote to close?
He approved, I saw his lips.
You approve. I approve. We're closed.
You might be interested, I just got that from the Department of Public Health.
Because he lived that hard